property investing was able to give me that flexibility, to be able to travel, to be able to design my day, to be able to work on projects when I wanted to have the income when I needed it, to do what I wanted to do. So
this is Property Investory, where we talk to successful property investors to find out more about their stories, mindset, and strategies. I'm Tyron Shum, and in this episode, we're speaking with seminar speaker and author Jennie Brown, who will diverge her history in property investing, stemming all the way back to childhood, and share how you can design your life how you choose by using property as a vehicle. An entrepreneur of all sorts, Brown has done everything from farming to undertaking a wedding business.
I've done a lot of things over the years, lots and lots of things, but predominantly I think we're here today to talk about property investing. So I have done a lot of property investing. I'm also a business owner. I have several businesses. We own a farm, we have a wedding business, and I also help people a lot with mindset and also helping them with their money.
She describes the perfect lifestyle that she has created for herself.
I am really, really fortunate that I'm in a position to design my life however I want it to be. So in 60 seconds or less, I usually get up when I choose to. I usually, because we own a farm, check on all my animals, walk around. I might do a bit of meditation or something like that. Then I will look at some of my work for the day. I will enjoy lunch if I want to, talk to friends, whatever. In the afternoon, I have a swim usually. We've got a pool and a bit more work. And then in the evening, I get to enjoy whatever it is that presents itself. So I really don't have a spectacular life, but I have a very peaceful life and one that I'm very, 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 very happy with.
Brown attributes her ideal lifestyle to the flexibility of property investing.
Well, property investing has been really, really good to us. And it's actually one of the things that really helped me to get to the position where I am now. It's one of the things that helped me, and probably the predominant thing that helped me to design my own lifestyle and to work out what it is that I wanted. I'm the type of person who doesn't like to be caged. So I haven't worked for someone per se, like in a job, for years and years and years and years. And property investing was able to give me that flexibility, to be able to travel, to be able to design my day, to be able to work on projects when I wanted to have the income when I needed it, to do what I wanted to do. So these days I have probably moved a little bit away from property investing because of my choices in the market and things like that. But I'm very, very grateful to it. And as a property investor, it definitely gave me the foundation to have the life I have today.
Brown's childhood shaped the strong foundation into property, and this was the catalyst for her.
I was born and bred in a little country town in New South Wales called Parkes, which is where the radio telescope is, and these days it's known for the Elvis Festival. But I was a fair bit older when the Elvis Festival went to Parkes. So that probably gives you. I was 4 years old when man went to the moon, so that gives you an idea. So I spent the first 14 years of my life in Parkes, and it was a great place to grow up, great community, country town, and lots of friends, lots of things to do. It was great.
From a young age, Brown was inspired by the tremendous work ethic of her father, who renovated properties from the ground up, despite the serious barriers in his way.
Well, it's really interesting because I am really, really blessed to have grown up with a father who was into property. And so for me, it was never, I see people come and learn about property and I see them, they have to really start from scratch and it's a really interesting journey. For me, I was born into that almost. We were really, really, really poor. Really, really, really poor. I can't stress that enough, just so you get it. We were really, really, really poor. And my father wanted to do something about being in the poverty cycle. And so he was the one that actually went out and learnt about property. And I was about 5 years old when he bought the first house. that we moved into that he renovated, and that was my life as a child, was going into these houses, living in them while he renovated them. And they weren't cosmetic renovations; they were really serious renovations. You know, leaking roofs.
Oh, gosh.
They would have, I remember Tupperware containers being on my bed and on the floor while we slept at night because of the rain dripping through the roof. And he would move walls, and, we usually had the obligatory, I call it the obligatory backyard dunny, the toilet right up the back with the green tree frogs and the redback spiders.
Wow.
And it was a bit cold in winter to run to that. And, he'd bring the toilets inside eventually, but those houses, we would be there for 2 or 3 years because he did it around his work. And most of the time he was a traveling salesman, so he actually wasn't even home during the week. He would go, out on Monday, come home on Friday or Thursday night or something like that. And then he'd, spend time with us and do a bit of reno, and off he'd go again. So we lived in a state of disrepair for years.
Wow. So how many houses would you say you have moved into to do these renos with your father?
Gosh. That's a really great question. I have no idea. I'd have to add them all up. There was
must have been a lot.
Yeah, there was quite a few. We moved every 2 to 3 years when I was a kid on average.
From there, Brown learnt the multitude of property investing strategies that are available and how to use them.
Wow. So there would have been quite a few. And then, as we grew up and I became a teenager, we moved to the coast in New South Wales, near Newcastle, and Dad branched out into different types of strategies. So then he sort of, started buying blocks of flats and houses and renting them out and things like that. So I wasn't just exposed to the renovation, which we lived through. We were also exposed to the design and the sale process and the buying process and then the different strategies. So by the time I was 20, I'd hit a lot of strategies and lived through a lot of them.
Wow, you're living reality of property investing. You weren't actually watching and learning from outsiders. Yep, you were actually living it.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So for me, there was no, I just thought that's what everybody did. It wasn't until I was a bit older that I realized that we were very unique.
Despite this wealth of property knowledge, Brown set off for a different future: computers.
When I was 20, I'd been overseas in America working as a volunteer youth worker, and I came home and I landed a job as a lecturer, would you believe, at a local college, which is now the equivalent of a university, but back then they called it a college. And I was teaching computers and things like that. My dad had always said to me, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And he said to me, go and learn about computers, Jen, because they're the way of the future. And, my dad was wise and smart in a lot of ways, and that was another good piece of advice. So I did. I went and learned about computers, and I was one of the first students through this college in word processing and things like that. And when I came back, the teacher that I'd had told the college to hire me to replace her because she was moving away. And because of that, boost that my dad had given me and whatever, I'd gone and I just did a year of what was a basic secretarial almost, but it involved computers and how to use them in the workplace. And so I landed in this college teaching for 2 years. And that was my choice. I travelled after that. But I taught for 2 years how to use computers in business and those type of environments and also admin and that type of situation. I was 20 when I started that, and I'd come back, as I said, from the States, and my dad said to me, you need to buy a house. And I was like, okay, well, I need to buy a house. So I went and bought a house. So he chose, a few, and we went and had a look, and I chose one down the road from Mum and Dad, and of course it was the reno with the backyard dunny. And while I was working teaching at the local college, I renovated that property. Lived in it and renovated it, and thought it was normal.
And so that's normal. It's like Dad says, let's do some more renovations. Sure, Dad, I'll do another one with you.
And what was really handy is I chose the one that was closest to them. So I was about 7 houses down. And so, my dad was the type of person who would say, right, you know how to do it yourself type of thing. But, I'd ring him up because I was a slight little thing back then. I'm not so slight anymore. But, holding a paint roller above your head is quite hard work. And and we knew how to paint and tile and gyprock because we'd been brought up with all of that and taught it all as we were growing up. And so I'd ring him up and I'd say, Dad, I'm having trouble. The paint's drying too fast and I can't roll the ceiling fast enough. And he'd go, oh, and down he'd come with the dog. We had a red setter named Madam, and so he'd come striding down the street, and he'd come in and he'd go whoosh, 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 and the paint would be finished.
For Brown, her dad was a property renovation master, and he always made sure to teach her everything he knew.
I'd be like, okay, Dad, thanks. But, the walls I had to do myself. But, he was really good like that. He taught us a lot of things. I mean, I just thought that's what you did. And I didn't even question it. I knew how to do all those things because we had been brought up with them and had been taught how to do them.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Once you've been taught that stuff, it's kind of like part of you and ingrained in you at an early age. It's like whatever we teach our kids is what they'll know for the rest of their lives. So you're very fortunate in many ways to have those skills because a lot of people don't get raised up in them unless they actually go out and become trades or apprentices. So at what stage was that? Do you remember which year that was when you bought your first property?
Oh, that's a really good question. It was the mid-1980s. It was the 17% interest rates.
Wow, okay. That's why
which I just thought was normal.
Nothing's normal nowadays, is it?
Yeah, and back then they had a first homeowners grant. Oh. And I actually got the first homeowners grant, and then I had to pay it back because I rented the house out. So, the deal was if you rented your house out within a certain period of time, because I renovated it and then I went, as I said, traveling and did different things, and I rented that house out. And so I had to, obviously, I told the government that that's what I was doing. And it was like, okay, well, there ends your first home owners grant and you need to pay a little bit back. So I went, okay, whatever.
Well, at least you got to go
and I just want to address that, Tyrone, because I hear people today, young people, and they say, the first homeowners grant's been taken away from us and all the rest of it. Well, to me, it was a privilege, and it got taken away from me to some degree as well. But I never felt I was entitled to that. It was just a bonus, and it kind of helped as I went. But I really think, we need to be really careful that we don't feel entitled to stuff. When you work for something and when you have what we call skin in the game, you really appreciate it and you understand the value of it. Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important point, actually.
I agree. I totally agree. And we shouldn't be looking at entitlements because at the end of the day, if you want to create wealth for yourself, you've got to do it yourself and not rely on the government because
that is
don't
absolutely
just hand these things out.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I've been very fortunate in that I've always found my way somehow because of the way we are. And just something else you said there, something you highlighted for me, which is actually a little bit of an aha for me, which is interesting, because I don't get ahas about my property investing journey very often. But you were saying that my dad, that I lived the benefits of investing, and I've always encouraged people when I teach property or speak to people about property to involve their children on the journey because children are our future. They're the people who are going to lead Australia, in the next 10 years, 20 years, whatever. And in actual fact, I was the result of someone actually living what I tell people to do. And it's a very good thing. It's like anything, if you just grow up knowing how to ride a horse, you just know how to ride a horse.
Exactly.
But for me to get on a horse and ride it, it's a really big deal.
Yes.
And so, for people who are looking to get into property, who are in property, I think it's very, very important that you mentor and enable people to just think it's normal to do that type of thing. And I think we've got a much better opportunity there.
After the break, we'll jump right into Brown's investment journey.
I designed and built these two homes, and that was the start of me getting back out and on my feet again. So, I don't have this story that's all rosy. I actually lost everything.
Her worst property investing moment?
And, struggling financially. My ex-husband went bankrupt, and that obviously had some repercussions on me as well. And it was a really hard couple of years.
And the learning aha moment that changed her perspective on property investing.
And I had attempted to do so and didn't work. And I ended up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. And that was a really big wake up for me because until then I'd always made money.
After Brown purchased her first investment property, she realised there was more she could do.
I didn't really realise I had the experience, and I just, thought, oh, you bought a house, you rent it out, whatever. So I went to Sydney and worked for a while, and then I got married. And that house was great because we moved back into it for a while. But then I realised I could, we moved north, and I started designing and selling project homes. Now, when I say designing, I'm not a designer or an architect or anything like that. But one of the things my dad taught me was how to design a house and how to actually draw it. And so I can draw a house to scale with window schedules and electrical schedules and all that type of thing.
With this skill, Brown was easily able to succeed as a property designer and build upon her other skills, such as cost evaluation. And it was these skills that enabled her to get through some of the darkest parts of her property investing journey.
Designing and selling project homes, and I had all this experience, that I had learned that I didn't even know was really valuable. And the great thing was I could, talk to clients that were coming in, and if they wanted a little modification here or there, it was very easy for me to work out how to do that and whether or not, it was going to be costly and all the rest of it. But the other good thing about it was I learned a lot about costing stuff. And during that time as well, I used the property that I already had, and I would not recommend you do this, okay, now, knowing what I know. But I used that first property, and I actually designed and built, and they weren't project homes, although we built them with the project home builder. My marriage broke up too, by the way, in amongst all of this. So I went right down to absolutely nothing, like totally broken and out on my rear end. But I designed and built these two homes, and that was the start of me getting back out and on my feet again. So, I don't have this story that's all rosy. I actually lost everything and did these two houses, almost lost them. And then I sort of reassessed everything and went on, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the knowledge that I got with those project home builders was part of what took me into the property investing journey in the future. And knowing how to cost and draw and all that type of thing was really invaluable.
Wow, it's so exciting what you shared. I'm on the edge of my seat wanting to know more. Well, I'm curious now then, if you mentioned that you had your home, did you build project homes on the same block of land or did you do it somewhere else? Is that what you were saying before?
Well, I had the house. Okay, so yes, that's what I started to tell you. I had the house, so I used the equity in that because I bought my first house for $28,000. They gave me. It's a whole lot other story how I did that, but anyway, I had a lot of equity in it because it just kept going up in value because of what we'd done with it, and so I used the equity to build the other two homes. Now, what I'm saying is, I would never recommend you do that. If you're going to do that, you need to take out a separate loan. So that nothing is cross-collateralized.
Cross-collateralization is definitely a risky play as it gives the bank more control of your investment at the benefit of you not spending any of your own money to purchase or renovate your next property.
So I would never recommend that you cross-collateralize. In fact, I'm adamantly against it. And to be honest, I don't even know if I did cross-collateralize or whether I just increased my borrowing capacity on the first house and used that then to fund the second and third. But that's basically what I did. When my marriage broke up, as I said, I pretty much lost everything and I had to sell everything. So all of those homes went, and then I just had enough to start again. A very small amount to start again.
It seems that nothing worse could happen to Brown at this point. And yet, the lowest possible point on an investment journey was still yet to come.
What happened after everything? I just sat back and, my marriage had been very, very volatile, and I had to make some really serious life choices. And one of my choices was that I not only wanted to live, but I wanted to live well. And so I went out and bought a block of land, quite a large block of land, and I built a home on it. Everyone said I was nuts. Why did I need such a big house? But I taught music from that place. I held down 2 or 3 jobs. I just worked really, really, really hard. And I used that place as my stepping stone into the future. And I always had this goal that I would build this place and that eventually I would sell it and make money. And this is the property coming back in again. I knew that I could make money from property I just had to work out how in the circumstances I was with. And there's a really big gold nugget in that, Tyrone, in that it doesn't matter what circumstances you're in. If you go seeking the answer to get out of it, you will find it eventually. And so, and the other gold nugget in there is, these things don't come. I grew up with this, but it still wasn't easy. I had to work. Like, I was working, like I said, 2 or 3 jobs. I was teaching 50 piano students a week. I was really, really pushing through.
From this position of struggle and sacrifice, Brown was able to turn everything around with property investing.
And, struggling financially, my ex-husband went bankrupt, and that obviously had some repercussions on me as well. And it was a really hard couple of years. But at the end of that, I sold that place for a really good profit, which was my intention when I started. And that then gave me a launching pad. I moved to Brisbane, and that gave me a launching pad into property investing in the Brisbane market, and a good launching pad because I had enough income. I didn't have to worry about working. So I didn't work. I knew I could survive for a number of years on what I had in the bank, and that I could use that to go forward with.
Wow, that's great. Mind if I ask, what kind of amount did you have to be able to live like that, to be able to start a good launching pad into your property investing journey?
Do you know, I couldn't give you an exact amount, but I know back then we weren't earning a lot annually back then like we do now. And I knew I had enough to last me 3 to 5 years if I was, living like I had been, and if I was really frugal, probably longer. But it also meant I had a really good sum of money to invest in a market that was, not like the prices we're paying now, obviously, but it was all relative.
From that launch pad, Brown dove into the Brisbane house market and definitely made a splash.
But on that, my first investment in Brisbane was a reno, and I bought it, and I put what did I put on it? I think it was an 8-week contract, and I got permission to renovate it while I was under contract, so I didn't even pay for it. I did the reno.
Although it wasn't all sunshine and beach walks in Australia's sunny state, hard work followed Brown on her journey, and especially in her first Brisbane investment.
If you look for the solutions, you can find them. So I renovated it from top to bottom. The place had been lived in by people who were drug addicts, and so we had to clean up needles. They'd had their electricity cut off, and so there were burn marks up the walls and on the carpet, and candle wax from the candles that they'd been burning for light, and it was a mess. We absolutely gutted it. And then I bought that and I sold it within the time that I owned it. So I ended up actually having a 3-week loan with the bank because I renovated it, sold it whilst it was still under contract, but had to obviously settle on it. So I had 3 weeks where I settled on it, and then I settled on the sale to the young couple that bought it. And I walked away with that. At the time, I was doing a contract job in Brisbane for 6 months, just working with young people. And I earned more money on that reno in 8 weeks than I could earn in, I think it was like 8 months or 12 months of work. So that was, just another little, okay, well, I can do this. I can earn more money doing this than I can earn working. So why would I actually work? And that was the last job or project I ever undertook for an employer.
That is so inspiring, and I think you've taken from a really low point in your life and taken it to a really, really amazing, inspirational point that you've shared with the audience, and I really appreciate that. I'm like, wow, I love hearing stories like this. So what happened after that?
Yeah, well, after that, I started doing different strategies in Brisbane. I got in a car with a real estate agent for three months, and every week we'd go out and he'd show me stuff and teach me in an area that I'd chosen as somewhere I wanted to invest, which is the Wynnum Manly Lota area on the southeast side of Brisbane. And I ended up buying a block of land there, which was what's called a splitter block strategy. So it was 3 titles on one title. And I sold that and made, again, heaps of money. I think I made like 120 grand, and all I did was get the house knocked down and separate the titles, which cost about $150 each, and then sold the blocks of land off. While we were doing that, by this time I had met and married a wonderful man who's still my husband.
What a turnaround from a struggling music teacher to a successful and happily married property investor. Seems like Brown's hard work definitely paid off.
We've been married a long time now, but while we were doing that, we obviously, that one was mine, the subdivision, the splitter. But while we were doing that, it was really funny because he lived in that area, see, and I'd moved up there, and I'd said to him, can you go for a drive and just have a look, because I want to make sure, or see what you think, because he knew the area way better than me. And so he rings me up and he says, Jen, I don't understand it. This is a corner block and you're saying there's 3 blocks here, and all of someone going, yeah. And anyway, we worked out that he was actually in the same street as the one I was going to buy, but down at a different one that was for sale. Anyway, but he looked at it and went, well, I think we could do this one too. Anyway, so we bought that one as well. And so I managed all the projects. And what that one was a house on a corner and a block, a very big block that ran lengthways parallel to the ocean, and you could get ocean views from it. And so we thought, well, we'll subdivide that off, the house on the corner off, and we'll get 2 blocks and they'd still be decent size. And we thought, okay, that's good. And then we looked at the house next door, which was heading down the hill towards the water, and it was a small house on the front of the block as well, and it had room on the back as well. And we thought, well, if we can buy that, we can actually put 2 long blocks with views to the ocean, and we've got 2 houses we can sell off. And the house on the corner, here's the bonus, was 2 flats in one house. And we had to combine that back into a house as part of the condition of the subdivision. But whilst we were doing the subdivision, we could keep it rented as two flats. So we bought both. It took us a while to get the second block because the guy didn't want to sell, but we knew that we would make money on it, and we made hundreds of thousands of dollars on that deal. And we put it through subdivision in the quickest time our subdividing people had ever put through. And yeah, we drive past that often and look at it and go, we did that. It's now got 2 really nice houses on the blocks with beautiful bay views, and we're very, very happy. And interesting, the girl in the flat, one of the girls in one of the flats, her name was Mary, and she became really interested in what we were doing, and I ended up teaching her how to invest in property. And it was really wonderful because she was a young girl, and she ended up buying her first house just after we sold the flats. So it was really exciting to watch her go and actually go buy her first property and get going on the journey as well.
How exciting. That story alone is exciting, everything that you shared. I'm going to have to delve into the strategy in another podcast episode we've got here, because I think
I've done heaps.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot that we need to share. What I wanted to also find out from you as well, with that particular subdivision and stuff like that, which suburb was that located in? Is that in Queensland?
That was Wynnum. Yeah, Wynnum in Brisbane. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that suburb. It's quite a nice suburb by the sounds of it. It's by ocean views and everything. Obviously, things have changed a lot in the last, 20 years? So that definitely would be...
Things have changed a lot. Yes, that's true.
Okay.
And, that's a really good point, Tyrone, because you've got to invest to the market you're in. Splitter blocks are much rarer to find, but I was actually one of the first people that worked that strategy. And I did really well out of it for quite some time.
Brown's aha moment isn't one of stunning success or lucky break. For Brown, the aha moment was realising her biggest mistake and how she could learn from it.
So it was a splitter deal as well. And I got a little cocky and a little greedy. And one of the things I know a lot about and have always had an unusual amount of knowledge about is reading property markets. And I knew we were going to head into the 2008 recession. And I just thought I could sneak in another deal, and I had attempted to do so and didn't work. And I ended up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. And that was a really big wake up for me, because until then I'd always made money. I'd always cruised it. I had really no idea of the knowledge that I had until I started finding out that people were going to seminars and that I had knowledge that they didn't, and that it was valuable knowledge as well. And I really screwed this up, and I just started teaching property. So it was kind of like, oh man, but I had a friend who was a property investor, and he said to me one day, "Why are you so upset about this?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's really put me in a bad position, and it's all right to say you're making heaps of money, but when you start teaching property or whatever." And he said, "Jenny, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Have you ever lost money on a deal before?" And I went, "No." And he said, "That's the problem. You've never lost money." And I probably learnt more out of that deal than I learn out of any of my other deals. And I've done a lot of deals. Just, to be more mindful of my gut, to be not greedy. And I will say straight up front, I just thought, I could get another one in. I'd got a bit cocky. I was the expert. I was making heaps of money, and it was unusual to see someone make money, and a woman as well. And, there was a whole heap of things in there, pride and all the rest of it. And my husband didn't want me to do that deal. And he really had a strong gut feeling about it. And he had numerous times said to me, "Get out of it." And here's the other thing too, I work with integrity, and I had signed a contract. And so I didn't want to get out of it because that went against my integrity. But in actual fact, not attempting to find out if I could get out of it. And I knew that this was the other thing. I knew the person I bought it from, and I knew their personal situation, and they were in a really bad situation. And I knew that if I did attempt to get out of that contract, and I probably could have, there were cooling off periods and all sorts of things I probably could have got out of the contract on, or even if I'd have got out of it and paid to get out of the contract, it would have been way less than what I paid. But I was so into this, I've signed a contract, and, I've got to hold my integrity, and I've got to whatever, that I actually lost sight of the fact that I almost lost my integrity by not listening to my husband and getting out of that contract. So, sometimes you've got to really weigh up the consequences of your actions. But the one thing I learned from that was to listen to him. He doesn't very often put his foot down with me, but he had put his foot down very hard on that one. And I had, I know better because I'm the one who does all the investing, and this is, my thing, and I do this all the time. And I've learned that his intuition, when he puts his foot down, and it's probably happened 3 times in our married life, I listen, because I didn't listen that one. So, yeah. So the ahas out of that, just keep going, be careful. Yeah. When you have knowledge about property markets and they're going to crash, you need to be very careful about that. And it probably sent me the other way a bit. I'm way more cautious than I used to be about that type of thing. But I'm also a lot older, and I probably have less time to make it back. So I'm, more conscious of the risk.
At the moment, Brown is most excited by the opportunities presented all around Australia, especially those for women in sectors that are usually male-dominated.
I just think we live in a country where we have a huge amount of opportunity, and I'm excited about that. I'm also very wary. I think lots of things are happening that we need to be very careful about. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world and in Australia that I think will actually take away our opportunity. And one of the things I do is stand up against that type of thing. And I'm a woman, and I had to really battle some of the male dominance in the building industry, in the investing industry. It's unusual for women to come through it probably in the way I did, and particularly in my age. There's a few of us that did that, and we certainly were, standouts because of the male dominance in that. And, I fought for that. And it's really important to me now to fight for that for the future generations, and to make sure that because I don't think future generations realize what's at stake, and how much particularly women, how much we could lose if we do go into some of the areas that, our country is heading. And I think there's huge opportunity to actually stand up and forge the way ahead for people coming behind us. And that excites me. It also scares me a bit, but I think we have a responsibility to make sure that we leave behind something that's good and beneficial. And I am particularly passionate about making sure that women and children are taken care of, and what that means. The other thing, I guess, for me is that I'm excited about is, I'm in a position now where I can. It's funny I say I'm in a position now, but I've always been in a position to instigate and be a change person, someone who facilitates change, and that's really exciting too. It comes with great responsibility, but it's really quite awesome.
So, inspired by this story and what Jennie Brown is excited about today, we'll keep the conversation going in a future episode of Property Investory, where we talk about how to apply Brown's strategy.
Probably one of the most successful strategies I've ever done is strata titling.
You can learn from a mindset training.
But when I started to teach mindset, they were more likely to do something, because property is all about mindset.
We'll also discuss the personal habits that contribute towards her success.
Second habit is write your goals. Write your goals. I recommend you write your goals twice a day.
Hear all this and more in a future episode of Property Investory. To get the full transcript and see the show notes, visit our website at propertyinvestory.com.